You've been told that transformation needs to be proclaimed, that real change demands witnesses, validation, and documentation on social media. Society encourages the grand announcement of a shift, the before and after stories, the public pledge to change. However, there's a deeper, more profound truth to transformation that is often overlooked. The most significant alterations in your reality, the ones that truly shape who you are becoming, often occur when no one is watching. These transformations unfold in silence, under the radar of external observation, invisible to the world around you, but vividly clear to you. It's like discovering a hidden door in a room you've walked through 1,000 times, never suspecting there was more than meets the eye. You might have brushed past a seemingly solid wall countless times, convinced of its immovable presence, but then, unexpectedly, your fingers find an edge. A hidden mechanism triggers, and suddenly, you're stepping into a different dimension, one filled with limitless possibilities. This is the essence of the invisible quantum shift that we'll explore here. A profound transformation that alters everything, all while the world remains unaware of your silent evolution. We've been conditioned to believe that change must be visible, measurable, and broadcasted to be real. Our culture celebrates the big reveal, the dramatic overhaul of a life shared online, where the world can witness the commitment to transformation. But the truth behind this noise is this: the most lasting changes occur in silence, in the quiet restructuring of your mind and neural pathways. Neuroscience supports this concept by showing that your brain is constantly reconstructing itself. Through countless small, microscopic neural events, tiny electrical conversations between brain cells build new circuits, new ways of thinking and behaving. These changes happen beneath the surface, unseen by others, but they form the very foundation of the person you're becoming. Here's the paradox many seekers face. The very desire to broadcast one's transformation can be a sign that the old identity is still trying to maintain control. Genuine change doesn't require an audience, it requires coherence. Think about it. Before a quantum measurement occurs, particles exist in a state of superposition, suspended in all possible realities at once, waiting. When the potential becomes actual, it's not a loud, dramatic event. It's subtle, nearly imperceptible, and only the conscious observer can perceive the shift. Reality itself doesn't demand a grand entrance, it shifts quietly, almost unnoticeably. This is precisely how personal evolution works. You attune to a new frequency within yourself, and as you do, the quantum field around you begins to reorganize, to reflect that new frequency without requiring anyone else's approval or awareness. Most people miss this because they expect dramatic signs of change. They are conditioned to believe that transformation should announce itself with fireworks. But existence is designed to evolve in whispers, not shouts. Take a moment to reflect on your own journey. Have you ever felt the overwhelming pressure to prove you're evolving? Sharing every insight online, explaining your new direction to everyone you know, seeking validation that your transformation is legitimate. This hunger for external validation is actually a sign that the shift hasn't fully stabilized within you yet. Authentic transformation doesn't need to perform for others. It manifests as an internal click, a knowing that requires no explanation. The shift happens beneath your awareness, and one day people will start to say, "Something's different about you. I can't quite put my finger on it, but you've changed." That's when they begin to notice the transformation that's been unfolding quietly within you for weeks or months. The paradox here is that the more invisible your transformation remains, the more irreversible it becomes. The moment you announce it to the world, you risk scattering your energy outward, losing the very coherence that sustains the new version of yourself. When you keep it silent, you concentrate your energy, amplifying it. This is not about keeping secrets for secrecy's sake. It's about aligning so deeply within yourself that the transformation becomes fully encoded in your nervous system, solidifying before external forces can introduce doubt or resistance. Think of it like germination. The seed lies in darkness, unseen by anyone. There is no audience, no celebration of its progress. Yet this invisible period is precisely when the roots are growing, when the structure is forming. By the time the sprout breaks through the soil, it is already established, inevitable, and no longer vulnerable to being uprooted. Most seekers fall into a trap here. They confuse external noise with internal progress. They chase visible markers instead of cultivating the invisible internal state of being. Your brain craves closure, so it searches for tangible proof that transformation is happening. But the real evidence of transformation isn't found in external milestones. It lies in the internal frequency that you begin to vibrate at. When you shift internally without needing others to see it, your life becomes exponentially more stable, magnetic, and expansive. That's the puzzle your subconscious has been trying to solve all along. Not how to prove change to others, but how to embody the change so fully that the need for proof disappears. This idea is echoed in the wisdom of many traditions. Neville Goddard taught that real creative power resides in the inner chamber, a private space of imagination where you feel the wish already fulfilled. Joe Dispenza's research shows that when your heart and brain are in coherence, your body sends an electromagnetic signal into the quantum field. And that signal doesn't require external witnesses to begin reshaping your reality. The silent frequency is already transmitting. Others don't need to perceive it for the field to rearrange itself around your new state. So, why do most people never walk through the hidden passage of transformation? The answer is not what you expect. It has nothing to do with discipline or willpower. It has everything to do with addiction, specifically our addiction to recognition, to being witnessed, to the external confirmation that something is happening. This addiction keeps us standing in front of the door, unable to see that our hand is already on the mechanism that opens it. We wait for applause, for permission to step forward, but the hidden passage only reveals itself to those who move in silence. The truth is this: your reality can shift entirely without anyone noticing, because the noticing was never the point. The point is becoming. Becoming always begins in silence before it manifests as visible evidence. The less you try to prove your evolution to others, the faster and more completely the quantum field will reflect that evolution back to you. This is the principle that the world doesn't teach, yet it is the foundation of every true transformation. Beneath everything you perceive as solid reality, there exists a quantum field, a limitless sea of potential energy, where every possible reality exists simultaneously, waiting to be selected. The field doesn't respond to announcements, performances, or declarations. It responds only to coherence. It listens not to your words, but to your frequency. When your thoughts, emotions, and physical state align in a single direction, that alignment doesn't make a dramatic noise. It emerges subtly, like a calm lake that perfectly mirrors the sky above it. The scientific basis for this transformation is called coherence and wave function collapse. A thought, when sustained with emotion and embodied physically, becomes a coherent signal. That signal resonates within the quantum field, collapsing waves of potential into particles of manifest reality. But this collapse doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It's more like flipping a light switch in a dark room, instant, quiet, complete. Yet, because our minds are trained to expect drama, we dismiss these quiet shifts as insignificant. We search for obvious signs, for dramatic evidence, for external confirmation. But the field doesn't require confirmation. The moment coherence stabilizes, the change is already anchored in reality. Neuroscience provides another critical layer of understanding. When neurons fire together in new patterns, they begin to form new connections. Initially, these neural pathways are fragile, barely visible. But through consistent repetition and emotional intensity, your brain strengthens these connections until they become the dominant pathways of your perception and behavior. The silent moments, when no one is watching, are precisely when your brain is creating your future. The laboratory of transformation isn't on a stage with an audience. It exists in the invisible exchanges between synapses every microsecond. If you truly understood the power of these hidden moments, you would treat them as sacred ceremonies. Here's the incomplete puzzle that frustrates so many seekers. If the field responds to quiet coherence, why do so many manifestation attempts fail? The answer isn't in more effort or more affirmations. It lies in understanding that transformation occurs not through external noise, but through internal coherence. The moment you internalize this principle, you will stop searching for signs from the outside world and begin to trust in the quiet, powerful work that is happening within you. The reason behind transformation often lies in contradictory signaling. Take someone who meditates for 10 minutes each morning, perhaps in search of inner peace or clarity. For the rest of the day, they spend hours immersed in worry, fear, and doubt, reinforcing the same limiting beliefs. From the perspective of the quantum field, coherence, which is necessary for transformation, never stabilizes. It's akin to trying to tune a radio while constantly moving the dial. Without holding one frequency long enough, you'll never catch a clear signal. This lack of sustained alignment explains why some individuals struggle to make the principles of manifestation work for them. It's not that quantum manifestation is broken, rather, they haven't learned how to hold a coherent, silent state long enough for transformation to take root. One of the most fascinating insights comes when you realize that the quieter you become internally, the more dramatic your external life shifts. This understanding flips the narrative we've all been conditioned to believe, that transformation must be hard, that we must force our desires into existence, and that we must broadcast them for the world to see. Quantum physics, however, tells us the opposite. The particles that shape your reality are listening, not to your voice, but to your vibrational state. Every moment, your heart and brain are either aligning in coherence or conflicting. When aligned, they emit an electromagnetic signal so powerful that it can bend the probabilities that govern your reality. But here's the catch. This broadcast produces no sound, and no one is there to applaud your efforts. The change begins in silence, beneath the surface, and operates invisibly until the evidence becomes undeniable. Take, for example, the documented case of a woman who transformed her life through one simple practice. For 30 days, she altered her emotional state before going to sleep. Each night, she practiced falling asleep while already inhabiting the feeling of her desired reality, one that had already manifested. She didn't tell anyone, post anything online, or make any public proclamations. Yet, by day 30, her reality began rearranging itself in ways she could never have orchestrated with conventional action. Career opportunities surfaced, relationships healed, and her health improved. To outside observers, it seemed like coincidence. But in truth, it was the silent, invisible work of coherence communicating with the quantum field long before anyone saw the effects on the surface. The ripple had already begun moving beneath the water long before it was noticed by the outside world. Now, it's easy to be swayed by the impatience that often accompanies transformation. Your brain craves resolution, and when you don't see immediate results, it tricks you into thinking that nothing is happening. But that's the illusion. The quantum field is always reorganizing, silently working beneath the surface, before any evidence manifests visibly. Imagine planting seeds and then digging them up every day to check for growth. This is exactly how most people sabotage their own transformation. They cannot trust the silence long enough for the roots of change to establish themselves. Here's the core idea that you need to internalize. What happens in the unseen realm, the realm of internal transformation, is far more important than what appears in the visible world. Just wait until you realize how much has already shifted beneath your conscious awareness. At this point, science and spirituality converge. Physics shows us that energy fields can influence one another without physical contact, resonating with one another at a deep, often invisible level. Ancient spiritual traditions have long taught the power of inner work done in solitude, prayer performed in secret, meditation practiced alone, and transformation cultivated in silence. Both the scientific and spiritual perspectives point to the same truth. The invisible world governs the visible world. This means that the quantum field isn't persuaded by performance or external displays. It is moved by presence, and presence can only cultivate itself in silence. So why do we keep demanding visible proof of change, even when we know the field moves quietly? The answer lies in the conditioning we've received. We've been trained to believe that change must be announced, validated, and witnessed by others. But the truth is that silence is enough. Silence isn't emptiness, it is absolute fullness. It's the space where waves of potential collapse into particles of reality. It's where the unseen becomes seen, and where your life reorganizes without anyone noticing. The field has always been moving in whispers. The question is whether you'll learn to move in harmony with its nature. To understand why some individuals can completely transform their lives while others remain stuck in repetitive cycles, we need to look deeper into the concept of identity. Identity is the true engine of transformation. It's not what you want that shapes your experience, it's who you are being in each moment. The quantum field doesn't respond to desperate wishing or wishing for change. It responds to coherence between your state of being and the reality you claim as already yours. When you shift your identity silently, without announcement or fanfare, you are rewriting your entire script in ways no one can perceive until the evidence becomes undeniable. This process is explained with precision by the science of neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly sculpting itself to match the patterns you reinforce. When you identify as someone who struggles, your neurons fire in specific patterns that perpetuate that struggle. But when you begin to identify as someone who creates someone capable of manifesting their desired reality, new neural circuits begin to form, even before any visible evidence appears in the world around you. The change starts in the brain's physical architecture, invisible to anyone but yourself. But here's the twist. These new neural pathways are fragile in the beginning, like thin threads in an untouched forest. If you expose them to external noise-seeking validation, announcing your shift before it's fully stabilized, you risk disrupting the very pathways you are trying to establish. Neville Goddard, a leading figure in the field of manifestation, stated this clearly: "You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are." He taught that the practice of assuming the state of the wish fulfilled, of embodying the feeling of your desired reality before it has manifested, is the key. You don't need to inform the world about your transformation. You become the change internally, in complete privacy, until reality has no alternative but to reflect that change externally. Joe Dispenza's work in neuroscience reinforces this concept. When you embody a new emotional signature, your body begins to exist in the future relative to the quantum field. This means the shift happens long before anyone else can detect it. That's why the most powerful transformations are often invisible at first. They are encoded in your identity beneath the surface, invisible but unshakable. Now, let's pause and consider the implications of this idea. The more you attempt to prove your transformation to others, the less real it actually is. If you were truly that new version of yourself, would you need to convince anyone? Of course not. The very act of trying to prove your transformation is evidence that it hasn't fully taken root yet. The silent shift in identity requires zero performance. It's a quiet alignment that stabilizes over time until external reality eventually matches it. That's why, in the early stages of transformation, it feels like nothing is changing. But when the external world does catch up, the shift appears sudden to everyone else, even though you know it's been unfolding invisibly for months or even years. Here's an example. Imagine someone who privately decides, "I am abundant now," and begins living from that inner identity, even when their external circumstances like their bank account don't yet reflect it. They are broadcasting a coherent signal into the quantum field. Their choices begin to subtly align with abundance. Their nervous system no longer rehearses scarcity. Opportunities that resonate with abundance begin to manifest, and circumstances shift in unexpected ways. At first, friends and family may notice nothing, but then one day everything pivots dramatically and others ask, "How did this happen so quickly?" The truth is, it didn't happen quickly. It happened silently beneath the surface, in the invisible realm of identity. There's a psychological puzzle here. If identity shifts invisibly, how do you know when the shift has genuinely occurred? The answer is subtle. You feel it somatically in your body. Old triggers no longer activate you. Old fears lose their magnetic pull. The patterns that once defined you seem distant, almost irrelevant. That quiet detachment is not indifference. It's coherence. Your nervous system is no longer addicted to the familiar frequencies of your past. And when your biology shifts, reality has no choice but to reflect that shift. But many people miss this signal because they're waiting for external proof. They don't realize that the inner shift is the actual proof. Everything external follows automatically from the internal change. Take a moment to reflect on this. What's one old pattern or trigger that is beginning to lose its grip on you as you step into this new understanding? This is the power of identity. Finally, identity explains why transformation often feels impossible when it's forced through action alone. If your actions conflict with your core identity, the old circuits always dominate. It's like swimming upstream with a weight chained to your body. You expend tremendous energy, but the current of who you believe you are pulls you back to your starting point. But when identity shifts, action becomes effortless. You no longer need to convince yourself to behave differently. It happens organically. The person who identifies as a non-smoker doesn't battle cravings. The person who identifies as an athlete doesn't negotiate with themselves about training. The person who identifies as a creator doesn't need to force productivity. When your identity shifts, behavior flows naturally, like water following gravity. This is the curiosity loop you need to internalize. Real transformation isn't found in what you do, it's found in what you stop needing to prove. Just wait until you experience how dramatically your life changes when you stop fighting with the old identity and simply stop being it. This is why silence equals power. You stop wasting energy convincing others and instead invest energy in becoming. When you do this, the shift that's happening beneath the surface becomes the most unshakable foundation imaginable. Let's continue expanding this idea further. Transformation, especially at the quantum level, is far more profound than most people realize. While the physical world often demands tangible proof, visible evidence, external accomplishments, and applauds the true power of change happens in the unseen realms, in the quiet, often imperceptible shifts within us. The world tends to focus on what can be measured, seen, or quantified, but these surface-level manifestations are just the tip of the iceberg. The real power, the true force behind change, is invisible and silent. Imagine for a moment how much of your life is dictated by unseen forces, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, all of which shape your experiences. These internal states are the true drivers of reality, not the actions or things you do on the outside. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you do in the external world, whether you're working harder, trying more techniques, or chasing more goals. It responds to who you are in the deepest parts of your being, to your internal state of coherence. It's the alignment of your heart, mind, and body with your true identity, the identity you choose to embody, that sends the most powerful signal into the quantum field. Most people live in a state of dissonance, where their external actions are not aligned with their true state of being. They may be seeking success, happiness, or validation externally, but deep down they feel disconnected from those desires. This misalignment creates inner conflict, which is reflected back into the world. It's like sending a mixed signal into the quantum field. You might want something, but you are not yet aligned with that desire at a core level. You may say one thing, but feel something else. This misalignment often leads to frustration, doubt, and struggle. When you align internally, when your heart and mind are in harmony, when you embody the identity of the person you want to be, your external circumstances begin to shift without effort. You don't have to chase after change, it comes to you naturally. You stop seeking validation from others or the external world. Instead, you become the embodiment of the change you wish to see. This process of internal alignment sends a clear, coherent signal into the quantum field, which begins to rearrange itself to match the frequency of your new state of being. This isn't just a theoretical concept, it has been proven by science. The HeartMath Institute, as mentioned earlier, has conducted studies that show the powerful electromagnetic field generated by the heart. When the heart is in a state of coherence, it sends out a strong and clear signal to the quantum field. This electromagnetic field extends beyond the body, influencing the environment and others around you. In essence, your heart becomes the radio transmitter, broadcasting your internal state to the universe. The clearer and more coherent the signal, the stronger its impact on reality. The fascinating thing is that this process doesn't require external validation or acknowledgement. No one has to witness it for it to work. In fact, the most powerful shifts often happen in complete silence, away from the eyes of others. It's in the quiet, private moments of inner alignment that transformation takes place. When you stop seeking validation, when you stop broadcasting your intentions to the world and simply embody the state of being you desire, that is when real change occurs. Take the simple act of breathing, for example. It may seem like a trivial thing, yet it is one of the most powerful tools for aligning your body and mind. When you breathe deeply and consciously, you enter a state of relaxation and presence. You allow yourself to become grounded, centered, and aligned with the present moment. This practice, when done regularly, reprograms your nervous system, calming the stress response and activating the creative, healing functions of your body. It's a small ritual, but its effects ripple throughout every area of your life. It shifts your internal state, which in turn affects how the quantum field responds to you. In the ancient traditions, breathing techniques like pranayama were not just exercises for physical health. They were considered spiritual practices that helped individuals align their consciousness with the universal flow. Yogis understood that through controlled breathing, one could access deeper states of awareness, peace, and power. Modern science is now catching up to these ancient teachings, recognizing that controlled breathing can shift the electromagnetic field of the heart and, by extension, influence the quantum field. The key to making this practice effective is consistency. It's not about doing it once and expecting instant results. Just as you wouldn't expect a plant to grow overnight after planting a seed, you must give your internal shifts time to take root. The process of change happens gradually and silently. As you continue to practice these simple rituals, the changes begin to accumulate, and eventually the quantum field rearranges itself to reflect your new internal state. But here's where many people go wrong. They seek constant external validation. They want immediate results. They want to see proof that their efforts are working. This is the trap of the ego, the need for instant gratification and acknowledgement. The ego wants to see tangible results, to boast about achievements, to prove to the world that something has changed. But this constant seeking of external proof only disrupts the quiet, internal work that is taking place. The more you seek external validation, the more you send mixed signals to the quantum field. You're not fully aligned with your new state of being because your ego is still looking for approval from others. What if the most powerful ritual wasn't about adding more techniques, more affirmations, or more external displays of change? What if it was about subtraction? What if you stopped rehearsing your fears before sleep? What if you stopped bringing old stories into new days? What if you stopped feeding your nervous system reasons to stay in distrust? This is where true transformation begins. In the silence, in the absence of external noise, in the clearing away of the static that prevents your signal from being transmitted with clarity. Imagine what would happen if you stopped constantly trying to prove yourself to others and instead focused on becoming the change you want to see. Imagine if you stopped looking for external evidence of transformation and trusted that the inner work you are doing is enough. The moment you stop seeking approval and external validation is the moment your internal transformation becomes solidified. The quantum field will begin to rearrange itself to match the new frequency you are sending out, without needing anyone else to witness it. This is the true essence of silent transformation. It is the alignment of your heart, mind, and body in perfect resonance, sending a clear, coherent signal to the quantum field. And when that signal is strong enough, it begins to attract the circumstances, people, and opportunities that align with your new state of being. You don't need to force or chase after anything. You simply need to remain in alignment with your new identity, and the world will respond. The quantum field is always listening, but it doesn't respond to loud declarations. It responds to your inner state of being. The more aligned you are with your true self, the more powerfully the quantum field will respond to you. The shift is not always visible at first. It often starts in silence, in the small, seemingly insignificant moments when no one is watching. But these small shifts accumulate over time, and eventually the world begins to reflect the changes you've made internally. In this process, your identity is the key. Who you decide to be, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, is what determines the trajectory of your life. The quantum field responds to your identity, not your actions. When you embody the state of being you desire, the actions follow naturally. You don't need to force anything. You simply need to align with who you are becoming, and the universe will begin to conspire in your favor. This is why the most profound changes are often invisible at first. They happen in the quiet spaces, in the moments when no one is looking, and when you are not trying to prove anything to anyone. As you continue to practice alignment in silence, you will begin to see the effects ripple out into your life. The transformation will not be a loud, dramatic event. It will be a quiet, steady shift that slowly but surely reshapes your reality. The truth of transformation is that it doesn't require external validation or recognition. It doesn't need to be announced to the world. The power of transformation lies in the quiet rituals of alignment, in the subtle shifts that happen within you when no one is watching. When you align with your true self, the world will begin to reflect that alignment back to you in ways that are undeniable. The quantum field will rearrange itself to match the frequency you are sending out, and the change will be visible, but only to those who are attuned to subtle energies. The quantum field is always listening, but it doesn't hear your declarations, your loud affirmations, or your verbalized desires. Instead, it listens deeply to your state of being. At a fundamental level, your internal coherence is the signal that the quantum field responds to. Beneath the surface of your daily life, your identity operates like a hidden language that communicates directly with the quantum field. When you make a shift in your state of being, whether silently or overtly, the quantum field responds. But this response is not an immediate, loud announcement. The field reorganizes itself quietly, subtly, behind the scenes, and it aligns itself with your internal coherence. And when the changes unfold, they may appear sudden to those watching from the outside, but you, the one experiencing the shift, will know the truth. The transformation was already happening in the quiet, unseen layers of your consciousness and identity. Every true transformation begins with ritual. However, the kind of ritual we are discussing is not necessarily one of grand, visible practices, elaborate ceremonies, or external displays. Most people think of rituals as involving candles, prayers, altars, and public commitments. But the most powerful rituals are those that are silent, personal, and hidden from the eyes of the world. They are rituals that take place in the privacy of your mind, your consciousness, and your body. The kind of alignment that has the power to reorder your reality does not need external validation or spectacle. What it requires is coherence, the internal harmonization of heart, mind, and body, practiced consistently in silence. When you align with this coherence, you become a stable oscillator in the quantum field, and everything around you begins to unconsciously synchronize with your frequency. Science helps explain how this works. Studies in quantum biology, including the work by the HeartMath Institute, demonstrate that coherence is not just a theoretical concept, it has real biological implications. When your heart's rhythm becomes smooth and ordered, it synchronizes with your brainwaves, creating physiological harmony. This harmonious state of being causes your body's electromagnetic field to expand and radiate measurable energy into the surrounding space. This is not metaphorical, it is physical reality. Every human heart generates an electromagnetic field, and when this field is coherent, its strength is amplified. This coherent field communicates directly with the quantum field, sending the signal of your identity and intentions into the vast expanse of possibility that surrounds us. However, here is the paradox. Coherence is not achieved through forceful effort or external noise. It is not about striving to be something or someone. Coherence emerges naturally and subtly through quiet repetition and silent practices, rituals performed when no one is watching. These quiet rituals might involve simple, everyday actions, such as breathing. The simple act of breathing consciously, slowly, and deeply can be one of the most powerful rituals you can engage in. As you inhale slowly and deeply, then exhale longer than the inhale, you allow your body to rediscover its natural rhythm. Within moments, your nervous system shifts from survival mode into a state of creative flow. Stress hormones decline, oxytocin and serotonin levels rise, and your body relaxes into trust. It is in this state of trust that your signal to the quantum field becomes coherent. And from this coherence, everything in your reality begins to shift. But there's a common misconception. Most people dismiss such practices as too simple. They want dramatic techniques, flashy methods, and quick results. However, the quantum field responds to simplicity, not complexity. The field is not moved by the noise and busyness of external effort. It is moved by the deep, consistent, and silent alignment that occurs when you take the time to harmonize your inner state. The true power does not lie in the complexity of what you are doing, but in the simplicity and consistency of your internal alignment. Breath is one of the most basic yet profoundly powerful tools for creating coherence. Ancient traditions have long referred to breath as prana, chi, or life force. But now, modern science is beginning to understand the mechanism behind these ancient teachings. When you consciously control your breath, you are directly influencing your autonomic nervous system, the part of your body that normally operates beneath conscious awareness. By consciously controlling your breath, you are, in effect, hacking into your body's operating system, altering the very foundation of how your body functions. But what most people fail to realize is this: your breath pattern is directly linked to your emotional state, and your emotional state is directly connected to the electromagnetic signal your heart generates. This signal, which is shaped by your emotional state and your breath, is what the quantum field reads when it decides how to respond to you. Everything is interconnected in one continuous circuit of energy and information. When you breathe consciously, with intention and focus, you are not merely relaxing, you are literally rewriting the electromagnetic signature that you are broadcasting into the quantum field. Studies using advanced magnetometers have shown that the heart's electromagnetic field extends up to 15 feet beyond the physical body. This field is not static, it changes its pattern based on your emotional state. And because your emotional state is intricately connected to your breath, it means that every time you practice conscious breathing, you are altering the very shape of the electromagnetic field you are projecting into space. This, in turn, changes how the quantum field responds to you, which changes the reality that begins to manifest in your life. This is why yogis have spent lifetimes mastering pranayama. They understood the deep connection between breath and consciousness long before modern science caught up. They knew that by mastering the breath, they could align themselves with universal flow and influence the very fabric of reality. And while modern science is beginning to validate these ancient practices, the key to unlocking their power still lies in consistent practice. Let's pause and think about the common misconception that people have about transformation. Many individuals obsess over addition. They think that more affirmations, more techniques, more vision boards, and more external efforts are the key to manifesting their desires. But in reality, the most powerful rituals often lie in subtraction. What if the most profound shift is not about adding more practices to your life, but about removing the unnecessary? What if you stopped rehearsing fear before sleep? What if you stopped carrying old, limiting narratives into new days? What if you stopped feeding your nervous system with reasons to stay in distrust? The key to transformation lies not in accumulating more techniques, but in removing the internal noise, the static, the interference that prevents your signal from being clear. This silent ritual of alignment is not about doing more, it's about making space for the coherence to emerge. The more you simplify your inner world, the more the quantum field can respond to your clear and consistent signal. This is the essence of silent transformation. You are creating the conditions for change by quieting the inner chatter, by letting go of the noise, and by allowing your true essence to emerge. It's in this space of internal coherence that the quantum field can respond most effectively. Now, this process is not always immediate. Often, there is a gap between when the internal shift occurs and when the external evidence appears. This is the period that many seekers find frustrating. They believe that if they don't see results immediately, nothing is happening. But this is where the true power lies. The invisible work is already taking place, and the field is rearranging itself in ways that are not immediately visible to the naked eye. Think about the process of throwing a stone into a vast lake. The ripples that form are subtle at first, but over time they spread and grow. Similarly, the changes you are making internally may not be immediately apparent in your external reality, but that doesn't mean they aren't happening. The quantum field is silently reorganizing itself, adjusting the probabilities and aligning the particles of reality to match your new internal state. Eventually, the effects of these shifts will appear, but it may take time for the ripples to reach the shore. The silent gap, the period between the internal shift and the external manifestation, is often the most critical phase. During this time, the quantum field is performing complex calculations, reorganizing the fabric of reality to align with your new frequency. It takes time for these adjustments to be reflected in the external world. But make no mistake, the changes are already in motion. Here's the key lesson. Your task during this silent gap is to maintain coherence. Your job is not to look for proof, not to doubt, not to waver back to old frequencies, but simply to hold the signal steady. Think of it like holding a single note on an instrument. If you keep changing the note, you'll never create a melody. But if you hold the note steady, eventually the entire orchestra will begin to harmonize with you. Similarly, by maintaining your internal coherence, you allow reality to begin to harmonize with your new state of being. This process is not about external performance, it's about internal alignment. The quantum field doesn't care about the noise you generate, it only cares about the signal you embody. When you stop negotiating with your old self, when you stop looking for external validation, that's when the magic happens. The field begins to mirror your internal state, and external reality must eventually conform to your new frequency. The beauty of this process is that it's invisible to others. The transformation begins in silence, in the quiet moments when no one is watching. But once the shift becomes visible, it will be undeniable. The world will look at you and say, "How did this happen?" But you'll know the truth. It's the result of the silent rituals you've been performing all along, the alignment you've been maintaining in the background while no one was watching. In spiritual traditions across the world, this truth has been encoded for centuries. Mystics spoke of the secret place, the inner sanctuary where transformation happens without external display. Yogis taught that the key to alignment was in the breath, the internal work done in solitude. Even Christ taught, "When you pray, enter your room and close the door." The wisdom is clear. The ritual is for the field, not for the external world. The transformation begins in silence, and the field responds to that silent coherence. So, the final invitation is to stop underestimating the power of quiet shifts. Stop waiting for applause before trusting the ripple. The change you embody silently today will become the wave carrying your life forward tomorrow. Others may not notice the beginning of this transformation, but they won't be able to ignore the outcome. The ripple effect is always moving, silently shaping and reorganizing your world. The only question is, will you sustain the signal long enough for the wave to reach the shore? If this message is resonating with you, if it's activating something deep within, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this content, but to this frequency. This community of consciousness explorers understands that the deepest transformations happen in silence. By joining this movement, you align with the truth that the quantum field responds to the coherence you embody, not to the performance you display. The more of us who embrace this truth, the more powerfully we can shift the collective field and transform our world in subtle, invisible ways. The journey starts in silence, but when you understand that silence is creation in its purest form, the power you begin to embody will reshape everything around you.